Hello, friend. Good to see you again. How has your week been? I hope you're having a good time, even as the weather is getting a little colder. Have you still been able to play outside or go for a walk or anything? It's kind of fun, huh? To see all the leaves and changing color and the beautiful trees and everything. It's pretty awesome to see God's creation, isn't it? This week, we are going to talk about a man named Daniel. And you may have heard of Daniel before. He is famous for sleeping with some pretty dangerous animals. What do I mean by that? Well, let's find out. I'm going to read the story and I'll show you the pictures too. Things were not looking good for God's people. They had been captured and taken far from home, and now they were slaves of the king of Babylon. But God had not left his people. He was with them and he was looking after them. Daniel loved God and obeyed him. Now, God made Daniel able to understand lots of different things. So it wasn't long before the king of Babylon noticed him. King Darius liked how clever Daniel was. So he made Daniel his most important helper of all and put him in charge of lots of other helpers. Yeah, looks like they're buddies, huh? But the other helpers didn't like this. They wanted the king to like them best. They wanted to get rid of Daniel. So they spied on Daniel. You see that? You see them up here? Spying on Daniel. They tried to find things wrong with Daniel, things that they could tell on him about to the king. But there weren't any. None. They couldn't find anything at all that Daniel was doing wrong. But there was one thing that made Daniel different than everybody else. Every day, 3 times a day, without fail, no matter what, Daniel went to his room, closed the door, and prayed. Well, that's when these guys smiled to themselves. Let's get the king to make a law that no one's allowed to pray to anyone else except to him, the king. Daniel won't obey it then, and then he'll have to be punished for it. They were so pleased with themselves for being so clever, and they hurried off to tell the king. And the king liked their idea. He didn't know that they were tricking him. He didn't know that they were thinking about punishing Daniel. He just thought, sure, that's a great idea. People should pray to me. People should think that I'm the most important thing because I'm the king. So he made it a law. Everyone must pray only to me. If you don't, the lions will have you for dinner. Yikes. Daniel heard about this. He knew it was wrong to pray to anyone except God. He had to do what God said, whatever it cost him, even if it meant he would die. Yikes. Doing the right thing, even if it means you're going to die? So Daniel went to his room, closed the door, and he prayed. And that's just what the bad men knew Daniel would do. They skipped straight off to tell the king, "Oh, your most glittering highness, your law says, doesn't it, that everyone must pray to you alone, sire?" "Yes," said the king. "Oh, magisterial brightness, then correct us if we're wrong, but it would seem that Daniel is praying to God, not to you." The king was sad. He had been tricked. He didn't want to hurt Daniel, but he couldn't change his law now. So he let the soldiers throw Daniel to the lions. "May your God, who you love so much, rescue you," the king said. There they are, tossing Daniel down into the lion's den. Kind of scary, huh? The king went back to his palace, but he didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. He tossed and turned until finally, at the last glimmer of dawn, he leaped out of bed and ran straight to the den. "Daniel," he cried, "has your God rescued you?" What do you think? "Yes," Daniel shouted. You see him? He's just hanging out with them, huh? God sent an angel to close the lions' mouths. Right there, resting his head on Daniel's lap, was the biggest lion, purring like a little kitten. The king brought Daniel out of the den. "Look," he said, "Daniel doesn't even have a scratch." The king made a new law instead. Daniel's God is the true God, the God who rescues. Pray to him instead. And that's what God does. He rescues us. He is stronger than us. He's also stronger than anyone else around us. And that's why we know that we can do the right thing, no matter what, just like Daniel. Because we know that God takes care of us and God will rescue us. It's hard to do, isn't it? Let's say if you have a sibling who is being mean to you, you may want to get in a fight with them. You may want to be mean back. But you know that that's not the right thing to do, is it? And sometimes even doing the right thing doesn't make things better. Sometimes you may do the right thing, like use kind words to tell them to stop, or to remove yourself from the situation, or maybe to ask an adult for help. But sometimes even doing all those things might not stop your sibling from being mean. But we know that even when the bad things continue, we can still do the right thing, and God will still take care of us. We know that he rescues us. You know how I know that? First, because of Jesus. That's right. Because Jesus came to rescue us from sin and from death. And we know that one day we're going to live with him forever. And we know that because he rose from the grave. He conquered death himself. And he says, you don't have to worry about death anymore either. But I also know that God will rescue you and me. And we can remind ourselves that God rescues us, and we can do the right thing then, no matter what, because he forgives us. Right? If we do decide to be mean back, to make bad choices, any of those kinds of things, God will still rescue us when we say we're sorry. He'll forgive us. That's him rescuing us too. It's pretty awesome that he does that, huh? Let's thank God for that. Would you pray with me? Dear God, thank you for loving me, and thank you for forgiving me, no matter what. Help me to do the right thing, no matter what. And never forget how much you love me. Amen. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.